Okay, now we are recording. So welcome, everybody. Happy 2023. We are at our first Budget Advisory Commission meeting of the year. So today is Thursday, January 12th, and I see we have, looks like we have a quorum. We will confirm that once we do roll call. So we'll call the meeting to order. I will start out with the land acknowledgement and also a reminder about our hybrid meeting where teams and in person. So first, the land acknowledgement. A land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects Indigenous peoples and the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and the land. I'd like to acknowledge that we live and work on the unceded land of the Dena'ina people and thank them for their past, present, and future stewardship of the land on which we all live. And then just another note for folks joining online is that we are having a virtual Teams meeting as well as being in person here in City Hall. Please note the Teams chat is not part of the audio recording of this meeting. So to make the audio record as complete as possible, comments should be stated into the record, not just placed in the chat. If you make a comment in the chat, I will ask you to state the comment in the record. And then of course, also as our practice is, if you'd like to make a comment and you're online or trying to get folks' attention in the room, you can use the raised hand function, or you can use the chat to indicate that you'd like to make a comment. So I'll just keep an eye on the chat from there. So with that, let's go on to roll call. So OMB staff, if you could do that roll call.
Yep, I'm just pulling up the agenda.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. And just one moment, we're pulling up the agenda. And actually, while we're doing that, I see we have a new staff member too. Do you want to say hello? I know it's not the agenda, but go ahead.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lindsay Causer. I'm just filling in for today.
Okay.
It's very nice to be here.
Okay, thank you for being here.
Yeah, no problem.
Lindsay works in the municipal manager's office. She is one of the executive assistants that helps run the city. She does a lot of work for everybody. She staffs other boards and commissions. And so I think that all of you received the notice that Lila took a promoted position over at the Anchorage Police Department. And so we are short another staff member at OMB, and we're looking to fill it, but Lindsay has generously offered to assist us for the commission until we do fill that seat. So.
Okay. Welcome, Lindsay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can do roll call.
We can do roll call. Ms. Brawley.
Here.
Mr. Clouda.
So he let us know that he's not able to attend today.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Flynn.
Here.
Ms. Hall.
Present.
Ms. Hobson.
Here.
Ms. Reeves. I didn't see anything come in from her, did you?
No, I saw her before. Rachel, are you on mute maybe? She didn't connect to this meeting.
Okay, maybe she'll come in a little bit.
Yeah.
Mr. Tamani
Here.
and Ms. Warfield.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, we will do approval of the agenda. So we've got it up on the screen here and was sent out earlier this week. So I'm looking for a motion and a second to approve.
I move
Matt-
to approve.
Oh, go ahead, person online.
Madam Chair, this is Carmela Warfield. I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Okay, so I'll beat you to it, but we'll have you as the second.
That works for me.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, motion by Al, second by Camilla. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Okay, not hearing any, then any objection to approval? Okay, we'll consider it approved. And then next we will move on to informational reports. So first there's the chair's report. So just a brief update I did share in December as well. So my intent is at the end of this meeting, like I stated in the December meeting, my intent is to step down as chair. I'm still going to remain a member of the BAC, And just to disclose, so I have filed to run for assembly, and so that's partly why I am trying to step back some duties, and I feel it's appropriate that somebody else take on the chairship at this time. And so that's something we will do at the end of this meeting. And also just invite folks to think about if you'd like to be in that leadership position. And I think that's all I had for the chair's report. So the second thing is the assembly report. So I'll just share, we do not have an assembly member today. I was in communication with the new budget and finance committee co-chairs. So Meg Zalatos stepping in for Boris Dunbar, Austin and Quinn Davidson is remaining the other chair. And so both of them were not available for today's meeting, but I did share the schedule and then made sure that they were aware of these meetings. So going forward, they'll be here, but that we don't have an assembly report for today. So with that, I will move on to Anchorage School District. And I think we have both Kelly and Andy on from the school district. And then we were hoping to get a general report as well as a little bit more detail on these, the bonds, the singular bond proposed for the school district. So I don't know if Kelly or Andy, who would like to lead off, go ahead.
Kelly can jump in first if she'd like.
Okay, sure. I was not anticipating a bond discussion, but I can pull up some notes that I have really quickly. First of all, hello, Happy New Year. I hope the year is off to a good start for you and any children in your family. As far as, I'll just sort of briefly share, we've been going back and forth in time, right? We're looking in advance of building our budget for the 23 to 24 school year. If you go back to December, the board came to a general consensus on how we might close what amounts to about a $48 million gap, although the administration right now is doing the hard work of preparing the budget for the board's approval coming up in February. So January is the sort of interesting, quiet in-between time. I think notable points from our last December meeting with respect to that forthcoming budget are that it would trim the administration's budget by a couple $1 million. It may involve changes to ASD virtual. As of December, there was a board consensus that Abbott Loop Elementary would be closed, that we would begin the process of transitioning all middle school students to 6th through 8th grade. But that might take 2 or 3 years to roll out. There was the bulk of the work of balancing the budget is coming from savings, and those are unexpected savings, I think, based largely on vacancies, because we are understaffed in areas across the district. So it's my understanding that the meeting on February 7th will be the first non-action moment for a robust discussion about the budget for the 23-24 school year, and then the board would adopt it at that second meeting in February, I think about the 21st or so. Looking ahead, the board is getting ready to look to talk with the legislature as soon as they gavel in. I'm really pleased that the Anchorage School Board led the charge at the November Alaska Association of School Board meetings and articulated that we'll be advocating for no less than $860 per student for a base student allocation increase, and as well as a couple of other points, the return to a defined benefit package for teachers to help with retention and recruitment, and an adjustment to the transportation as well is also really important. As far as the bond, this was prepared back in October, and the general scope for the upcoming April election is that the bond package is about $37.7 million. I believe that it would impact about 10 schools, and with about 4,500 students per year, really at each of those schools. And the bond proposition focuses on College Gate Elementary School, a roof replacement and seismic structural upgrade, a number of East High School, Betty Davis East High School academic area safety improvements. There are roof improvements at Cassoon and Kincaid Elementary Schools, more roof and seismic work at the ASD's warehouse and purchasing buildings, and a number of security vestibule improvements. And off the top of my head, I don't remember exactly which schools those were at. But that is a very brief summary, and Mr. Ratliff probably has additional details to share.
Okay, thanks, Kelly. I also want to acknowledge we were joined by Rachel Reese in the meeting as well. So I'll see, I don't know, Andy, if you'd like to give a presentation, or I can see if anybody has, well, actually, I'll see, does anybody have questions for Kelly? Go ahead, Al.
When can we expect an increase in the scores on math and language and English?
Great question. So the board has adopted 3 very robust goals. It's called Strategy 2026. And the goal as it stands is that with respect to reading, 80% of our 3rd graders will be proficient by 2026. And there are incremental points along that path to get there. Something similar holds true for our math. For our math scores for students in grades 3 through 9. And then we have like a college career readiness goal. So we monitor as a board progress towards those goals. We have a 12-month progress monitoring calendar. So we hear about reading progress 3 times a year, math progress 3 times a year. And then there are also some guardrails, sort of thou shalt nots, that the superintendent is responsible for respecting along that path. So that's a long answer to your question, but it is, as always, a work in progress.
Okay, any other questions for Kelly?
I had a question. When you said the BSA increase, is that the total BSA that you're requesting, or is that like incremental to the existing amount?
Yeah, so no, that is the amount. This $860 is the amount that the BSA would need to increase for what we call FY24, the 23 to 24 school year, in order to meet rates of inflation. So we've had flat funding so I have a 6th grader, and that BSA hasn't changed since she was a kindergartner. So we've had flat funding since August of 2016. There will be a $30 increase to the BSA next school year, but out of, what is the actual BSA? It's like $5,930 this year. Is that right, Andy?
Yeah, that's right.
So a $30 increase out of just under 6,000 is really not a substantial increase. And I was just reading for perspective that over the past decade, from 2012 to 2022, the BSA has only increased by $250 per student, which is about 4.2%, while inflation in that time has increased by at least 24%. So educational funding from the state has not kept pace with inflation, and that is really what ASD and boards across the state are advocating for. Does that help?
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Great.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, and I don't see any online yet, so why don't we go to Andy, and then we can circle back if folks have questions after that. So go ahead.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot to add. The secure vestibule projects, if you're not aware what those are, it's the front entryway in our elementary schools to make it where the office can see who's coming in and out of the building, and they have the buzzers to be able to let folks in and out, and have the cameras to see who it is. Just really to kind of tighten up security around our elementary schools. Most of them have it now. This project would actually affect Birchwood, Bowman, Northwood, Ocean View, Spring Hill, and Trailside. So we do have a good list of schools that we can help secure a little better. And as Ms. Lesson said, we are going to be presenting our budget to the school board on the 7th. So we'll have a work session and go through it all and detail all the different changes that we've made as administration, and then it'll go to board vote on the 21st, and then it has to be to the assembly by the first Monday in March. So expect to be able to meet those timelines. We will rely heavily on just our district's fund balance, which is our governmental equivalent of savings. So, you know, that's what we have to do to keep educators in the buildings essentially. So it's not ideal. Hopefully the state will come through with a BSA increase. And the $860 is really tied to the inflation that has been experienced since 2017 school year. So as that's grown and we just haven't kept pace with it, that's how the 860 comes about. And it is really close to what we've experienced as a district too, of what we would need to shore up our budget for next year. The only other thing I'd probably mention would be that we did have some leadership changes within our admin team. So Jim Anderson is now our Chief Operating Officer, and I'm now the Chief Financial Officer. And we have a new Chief Academic Officer that's replaced Mark Stock, and that's Sven Gustafson. He used to be the principal at West. And we have a new Chief Human Resources Officer as well, which is Marty Lang. He was a director in our secondary division. So just to let you guys know, we did have some changes. I'll still be part of the BAC for the time being until I can find someone to replace me and then get them acclimated to all the stuff that I did before. So just gonna let you guys be aware of that.
Okay.
That's really all I have. So.
Okay, thank you, Andy, and yeah, congratulations to you and the team for the transitions. Are there any other questions for our ASD folks? Okay, anybody online have questions? Okay, I don't see any, so thank you again for attending and giving your report, and we'll look for it next month.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that was our second to last report. So last we have Office of Management Budget, OMB. So Courtney, go ahead with your report.
So we do not have the December budget versus actual, so that's something that the BAC won't see probably for another month or two, and that's because as we finalize the end of year books, those numbers will change, you know, so as the finalization of invoices come in, and finance starts that process. So once that's done, we'll prepare that document and show the BAC once we have it available, so. But for the bonds, all of the bond propositions were introduced on the meeting on Tuesday. So the January 10th meeting has the proposed bond propositions that will go on, once approved, will go on the ballots for voting. There are 6 propositions. They are 10G3 through 10G8 on the agenda, and I will go ahead and put in the Teams chat the link to that meeting, so that it gives you the ability to go to those agenda items and click on the link for those items, and it'll give you all of the documentation. So you'll be able to see the ordinances and what those propositions say. Just in kind of high level, the roads and drainage bond is proposed at 34.5 million. The Parks and Rec bond is proposed at 2.3 million. Area-wide public safety and transit is 4.62 million. There's a Girdwood Valley Service Area request of $100,000. The fire service area bond is proposed at 2.625. And the Chugach Eagle River service area has a request for 450,000. And all of those match the 2022 or 2023 capital approved budget as was approved on AO 2022-88 as amended. So the bond proposition ordinances match what was approved through the 2023 capital process, and those are introduced with the expectation of voting on them on January 24th. The clerk's office sets a calendar in order to have everything received in time for them to do all of their reviewing and editing, to get to the printers in time for mailing of the ballots. And so they have set the timeline for the 2023 voter ballot as the January 24th meeting. So things that are expected to go on the ballot are needing to be approved on that meeting, so.
Okay, thanks, Courtney.
Yeah.
Any questions for folks?
And I also believe that just for reference, I think that in that same meeting, the ASD bond request is on there as well. So if you're interested in looking in those documents, I believe it's on there. I will try to find out which item that was.
Okay. Go ahead, Al.
Has the municipality sold any bonds lately?
We actually have. I think it was in November. We had a request on to the assembly to allow us to sell some bonds to cover the expenses of projects that have already been completed.
How'd the interest paid on those flow?
You know what? I don't know off the top of my head what the interest rates are, but I can look into it and get back to you. I believe we received something from public finance, and that's the area that sells off the bonds for us, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Not seeing any, so I think we can move on. So thank you again. Okay, so now we are into our reports and discussion. So department assignments. So I don't know if we have any new items to report, because I know between the holidays and we had a lot of good reports in the December meeting. So if you are watching online or if you missed the meeting in December, that's worth going back just to hear kind of what folks shared. But I will see if anybody who didn't get to share yet has updates on your departments that you met with. And actually, I should say too, so this is something the Budget Advisory Commission has done for a few years now. Each member was assigned, I think, 3 departments, of different sizes and different mix of departments to go and have a conversation with the department head and learn a little bit about, about how it works, basically translating the budget into what that operation looks like on the ground. So it's been a really good learning experience. And so we're just reporting back kind of what we heard, anything surprising. So then I'll open the floor if anybody wants to share.
I still need to have an appointment set up with the port.
Okay.
Okay.
So if we could get that done, it's our slow time till 1st of February and then. So.
Okay.
If you could do that, boy, it'd be nice.
Yep, we will do that.
Okay. Yeah, and for other folks as well, if you, I know the department heads were notified in the fall, that this would be happening. And so the OMB staff are available to, well, I guess right now it's just Courtney, but available to help set those up. So
Thanks.
yeah. And any other folks want to share either if you need assistance getting them set up, or if you had a meeting recently. I know we did share a lot of information last month.
Madam Chair, this is Carmela Warfield. Thank you to Lila before she left for helping me to start scheduling my appointments with the departments. I plan to share, not today, but at our February meeting, and I've completed 2 of my department meetings with the Chief Fiscal Officer's Office, meeting with Grant Yurtzinka, and the MOA Capital, PME, and Parks with Melissa too. And I look forward to reporting in February. And I'll reach out for help with coordination.
Okay, thanks, Carmela. Yeah, that sounds great. And this is just something, and no worries, Brian, go ahead. I see that you need to step away for a bit. But yeah, this is just kind of an ongoing agenda item, so we can make time for it and just time to share. And then, of course, you know, we can talk about later in the year if folks want to do another round of it or have new departments. So it's a good learning opportunity. Okay, let's move on to our next item, audience participation. I don't believe I saw anyone online and our audience is empty at the moment in the room.
Yep.
So I think we'll skip that one. And so next is a BAC open discussion. So this is really like if you want to raise an item that we should discuss or an idea for a future agenda, you know, monthly meeting. I guess I'll open the floor and just see if folks have any ideas.
Yes, I do.
Go ahead, Al.
We are engaged as a country and a state in the pursuit of electrical vehicles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so in taking a look at that, one has to say, like Anchorage, we had this board that recommended. Sorry about that. And recommended that 10 cents a gallon tax on gasoline sold in the municipality of Anchorage a number of years ago. And it was highly successful and produced quite a bit in the city. But my aspect is when these electric vehicles grow and grow and grow in numbers, how are they going to pay for their share of highway funds, street maintenance, all of those things? And I think we should actually start talking about that, because you're taking a look at a lot of money, and where's it going to come from? Because these people and entities, they utilize the roads, streets, all those things that are financed by the gas tax. And I think perhaps it's premature, but I think we should at least start moving and asking some questions about that.
Yeah, I think so. I think that's a good topic. And I'm trying to brainstorm like what that would look like on a meeting agenda, like what information we might want to have. So it seems like having maybe an overview of the current, how much revenue we get from the current gas tax, or sorry, I know it's just saying, motor fuel tax. And then maybe thinking about, what volume that translates into, if it's compliance or. I guess I wonder, maybe I'll look at staff. I wonder if, who we might want to talk to about that. I mean, certainly Department of Revenue or the Treasury would be revenue side.
Yeah, I think maybe having Dan Moore, and seeing if they're seeing any changes in our fuel tax revenues coming in. And if there's some kind of trend that they're seeing or, notices that they're getting, from other areas that are seeing the same thing, or, a trend in other states that might make us think that we're going to start seeing that.
Oh, and it would be helpful if we add the number of licensed passenger vehicles and pickups and stuff in Anchorage. Probably could get that from the state Department of Motor Vehicles. That would give us a number of cars. Firstly, a number. And then by seeing what the amount of taxes are collected in Anchorage, then you can interpolate that to an approximate cost per vehicle. And by doing that, you can say, okay, if we have a 20% drop in the use of oil product driven vehicles, then this is what's going to cost us. And how are we going to cover that? It's a lot of money.
No, that is a good question. And it is a good long-term question for sure. So maybe our first step could be having Dan present, because I know a lot of work goes into their projections that they use, and so he may have some of that data, or at least can talk through kind of the rationale for how they come up with that. So maybe that's something we can have on the February agenda and then go from there.
Maybe we're premature, but we'd rather be ahead of the power curve than behind it.
Sure. Yeah, and I think it's an interesting, just to understand how the muni does look at those things and how they do think ahead and, you know, how the staff does come up with those revenue projections.
And I think also is how are we going to collect in, an equivalency?
Yeah, no, that's a big question. Okay, yeah, so why don't we plan to start tackling that at the February meeting? Do other folks have thoughts for potential, potential topics or just questions you have, or doesn't have to be a fully formed idea, but go ahead, Carolyn.
Curious if there is a sense of, with the major snow events that we had,
Mhm.
what that may, or how it may be impacting with all the snow removal efforts that are ongoing still today, how that might impact the budget?
Right now, we're not seeing that we should, be running over by the end of the year. So it'll really depend what the next 3 months look like. So we actually really plan the snow events impacted the ending of the 2022 budget more than it did the 2023, because generally we don't expect to haul snow until, the beginning of, the next year. So this is about the time that we would haul snow anyways. But because those large snow events happened earlier, they had to start hauling at the end of last year. It doesn't appear that the maintenance and operations department is going to run over budget. They had enough savings already that they could cover the increased cost for the additional personnel hours in the overtime and then the contracting that was needed in order to really ramp up to start clearing off the streets. And so right now, they still have that effort going. They are working 24 hours a day, 6 days a week. We are utilizing additional contracting services as we can. So we're not just using the traditional dump trucks. They're actually using the side dumps, which are those longer trailers that dump from the side. So it hauls a lot more snow at one time. So they're using those to really clean out kind of the larger mains and collector streets. When they get into the residential areas, those trucks really don't fit into some of those cul-de-sacs and stuff. So they'll have to kind of bring that number of, contracted services down a little bit. So as the snow starts to clear away more, as they get large amounts done now, in the next couple of weeks, it'll kind of just taper off. So that by, I think, in the next 3 to 4 weeks, they're expecting to have everything hauled. There was a work session last Friday, I believe it was, on the snow hauling and the snow plowing. So if you're interested in watching that, our street maintenance supervisor, Paul Van Landingham, was there. He runs an amazing department. That street maintenance department really runs like a well-oiled machine. So I would encourage, if you're interested in learning, a little bit more about street plowing and how they work and everything, to watch that and listen to them. And it was really just the amount of snow in such a small amount of time that kind of, pun intended, the perfect storm, having to clear just like the magnitude. So right now, as far as the budget goes, we're just monitoring how these next events will come along. We're not seeing anything in the forecast, but it is Alaska and you never know.
Roll the dice, right?
Yeah, you never know from one day to the next. They say it's not going to, and then, so right now we're not expecting to have a large, more of an impact than another year, just because the expectation is this would be a time that they would be hauling. But if we do get some significant events, then that could be an issue, and we would then look at it as we move into the first quarter revised budget.
Is gas still an issue or not so much the gas prices?
The gas prices have actually come down, recently, so, you know, right now, we, during the approved process, we did add in fuel for the departments, with the expectation that was gonna be higher this year than it was last year, but not at that, you know, peak, you know, $5.50 a gallon situation. You know, we used a higher estimate, but more in the middle range then. So, I don't believe so. I think that I mean, world events notwithstanding, we'll watch what it does, but I think that we'll be okay as long as the gas prices stay in a moderate range.
Other topics that folks want to bring up? And this is, I mean, obviously, open discussion is always on our meeting, and as we're looking ahead to to 2023, we can think about what topics we want to tackle. Even if it's just informational. I know, for example, last year we did a presentation on the service areas, kind of how they work and how they're funded. So even if it's just an educational thing, we can always fit that in. Folks come in and present, so. So that's just an open question to folks what you want to hear. And also I'll say to the public, because we haven't had somebody recently, but I know members of the public in the past have also brought ideas or questions or proposals. And so we are always welcome to hear those as well. So for those listening out there in the ether, feel free to reach out to, I guess OMB staff is probably the best point of contact, but that's something we can schedule as well.
Does anyone remember the last time we talked about street maintenance? About who maintains which roads? I think it's been a few years.
Yeah, I don't know that so I joined in 2020. I don't think it was ever on our agenda. So
I think that's really, I think it's helpful.
yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. And I think that it confuses a lot of people. And so as we are in the public, I think it is helpful to have that information because people talk about, their tax dollars. And I think that their tax dollars are being wasted because their roads aren't being plowed without really understanding where that obligation falls.
Good idea.
Yeah. And I know for better or worse, we're still going to be talking about street maintenance, next month. So I think it'll be, maybe those could be our two topics for February. I think that'd be helpful. So I don't know who would be appropriate for street maintenance, but somebody to kind of talk about that.
Yeah.
Probably pull up a map, show which streets we're talking about.
Yeah, and I do believe there are some maps on the municipality's website under street maintenance. I think they do, especially when they're in the middle of snow events, and you can kind of go see which neighborhoods they're in at certain times. But I think they do have something out there that shows, what is city and what is state, but getting a more defined conversation about that and a good opportunity, I'm sure, for Paul to come in and tell you guys how exactly they figure out how they're gonna get all of that done. So, yeah, we'll put it on the agenda for February for street maintenance.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. And then, like I said, as other ideas like that come up, let's get them out there. Okay, so I think that was our open discussion. So the last action item we have on the agenda is our selection of new chair and vice chair. So I think the last time we changed leadership was last February. And then, I don't think we do it really formally, but we just choose a chair and vice chair from among ourselves. And so I also want to check, Brian or Carmela, are you back online? Because I know step away.
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay. And maybe Brian is not back yet. Okay, I just want to make sure. So just to share again, my intent is to step down as chair. We decided it would be less disruptive to not change the chairship in the middle of the meeting, so we put this at the end. And I did communicate with Nolan, so he's not here today. He was not necessarily looking to be nominated for chair, but he did say if literally no one else does, then he would like to be nominated. And then just to say too, we have our chair and vice chair. So the duties of the chair, it's not too much more work, but it's essentially doing a little bit of thinking before the meeting, so working with OMB staff, but chair and vice chair to figure out the agenda. So usually a few emails back and forth, approving the agenda. The main duty for the chair obviously is running this meeting, so what I'm doing right now. And then the vice chair's main duties are to step in if the chair is not available, like if I was sick for 1 month, something like that. And I know at least a couple of you guys in this room have been in those positions before too as well, so you're familiar. So I don't know how we want to do this. I mean, I don't think we need to do a secret vote or anything, because it's just us. So we can take nominations for chair and vice chair. If we only have one of each, we can do just just moving the slate. If we do need to have an election, we can run through that. So, and it's honestly been a while since I've done this too. So, so I think probably the first thing would be just if we want to take, I guess, starting with nominations for chair.
I'll nominate no one.
Okay. Yeah, and I should say, I know that normally you would be the person to be here to accept. I was texting with him, and so he would not be surprised if we nominated him.
I nominate Clouder.
Okay. Perfect. Okay, yeah, conveniently he's not here too. No, but we did communicate about this. Okay, so are there any other nominations for chair?
Oh, we need a second.
Oh, that's true. Okay, so nominate Nolan. Does anybody want a second? Okay, Carolyn will second. And then, as I said, I know it's a little bit weird since he's not here, but he did indicate I can pull up the text if we need to. Okay, are there any other nominations for chair? Okay. Sounds like none in this room right now. Then let's move on to vice chair. Nominations for vice chair. I'll nominate Carolyn. A second for Carolyn. I'll second for Carolyn.
It's a good experience.
Yeah.
Good experience.
It's also okay to say no. Person does need to accept.
Well, I'll second anybody that's nominated. So. Do I hear anything? Or did I miss it?
Well, I think we're waiting for Carolyn. to-
Oh, you're waiting on me?
Yeah, well, I think you have to say yes or no.
Yes, I accept it.
Okay. Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay, I'm not hearing or seeing any, so why don't we close nominations? And then, so we only have one person for chair and one person for vice chair, so I think we can do, I think it's just move the slate for unanimous consent, is the phrase. And I probably need a motion in a second, that's not me to do that.
I so move.
Do we have a second? I'll second. Okay. So we have a motion and a second to nominate Nolan Cloud as Budget Advisory Commission Chair, as Vice Chair. Is there any objection? Okay, and I do actually, I want to just check on the line if there's any objection, because I know you guys are on mute right now. I just want to make sure that we're not moving forward without you guys being involved. Okay, well, I'm not hearing any objection on that side. So, so with that, we will consider that the vote. So, following this meeting, we'll have a new chair and vice chair. So thank you, Carolyn, for stepping up. Thank you, Nolan's MDC, for stepping up. And I know Nolan has served as the chair before, so I know we'll be in good hands. Okay, and then of course, like I said, I will still continue to be a member, just not in a leadership position. So with that, I think unless there's any other items that folks want to bring up, so we have no other business items on the meeting. We have our next scheduled meetings there, so please make sure your calendar's up to date. And then, of course, we will add to our February topics. We got department assignments, legislative priorities, which we can ask the administration of the assembly to talk briefly about. And then we have our presentation from Dan Moore about the motor fuel tax and how they come to that revenue projection, as well as the street maintenance. So I think we have a good agenda. So with that, I will entertain a motion and a second to adjourn.
I say.
Okay, so I hear Carolyn and then I hear Al as a second. Any objection? Okay, well, with that, we are adjourned. So thank you, everybody, and we'll see you next month.
Oh, I wanted to ask you one thing also, the other staff. I'll talk to them afterwards.
Okay.